I transmigrated into a hero in another world, but was captured by demons and thrown into a dungeon. Before me stood a stunning succubus, holding a whip, a smile playing on her lips. Brave hero, the demon race has 100 ways to make you speak. I glanced at the torture instruments behind her, cold sweat trickling down. No need for the trouble. I'll confess. The succubus's smile froze on her face. Human troop deployments, royal secrets, or my story with my first love? Which one do you want to hear first? Icy chains grated against the stone wall, emitting an ear-splitting sound. I opened my eyes, finding myself bound to a torture rack in a gloomy dungeon. Flickering torches on the walls cast distorted shadows, and the air was thick with the smell of rust and mildew. My name is Lin Chi, an ordinary office worker. Half an hour ago, I was still pulling an all-nighter to revise a PPT. Now, I looked down at the magnificent silver-white armor on me, and a long sword in my hand, inlaid with glowing gems. Classic hero's attire. Unfamiliar memory fragments flooded in. Elliot, the first prince of the Rhine Kingdom, the contemporary hero chosen by the god of light. 3 days ago, while leading an army to quell monsters, he was stabbed through the magic core from behind by his most trusted adjutant. That guy even smiled gleefully after stabbing him, saying, "Your Highness, don't blame me. Blame yourself for being too brilliant. Some people just can't sleep at night." Then I was packed up as a gift and sent to the demon race. After processing these memories, my only thought was, the original owner really had it rough. Awake, a lazy female voice drifted from the shadows. I looked up, my eyes brightening, not because I saw hope, but purely from biological instinct. The one who emerged from the darkness was breathtakingly beautiful, her looks a sheer visual assault. Her deep purple hair cascaded like a waterfall to her ankles. A pair of delicate black, curved horns adorned her head, and her dark red eyes gleamed like jewels under the torchlight. A nimble black tail swayed gently behind her, its tip adorned with a cute heart shape. Succubus. My memories told me that these creatures excel at mind control and the art of torture. Heroes who fell into their hands almost always became tragic footnotes in history books. Brave hero, she approached me, her cool fingers brushing my cheek, or rather, Prince Elliot. I am Lilith, chief interrogator under the 7th Demon General. It's an honor. You are the first. Royal level captive I've handled. Her voice was sweet, like honey poison. According to procedure, she turned and walked towards the row of gleaming instruments by the wall, barbed whips, glowing red branding irons, and a pile of other things I couldn't name but instantly knew would hurt. I should start with some standard questions, like the human allied forces deployment in Grey Valley, the weaknesses of the royal capital's magic barrier, the correct way to activate the holy sword. She picked up a slender silver needle and examined it against the torchlight. But according to historical experience, heroes' mouths are tougher than dragon horde locks. She turned back, giving me an overly sweet smile. So let's skip the boring parts and get straight to the point, shall we? I looked at the needle in her hand, then at the row of torture instruments, and finally glanced down at the magnificent but utterly useless silver-white armor on my body. I confess, Lilith's fingers froze midair. I confess, I repeated, trying to make my voice sound sincere and cooperative. Grey Valley's garrison numbers around 21,400 men. The commander is Marquis Rogers. He has an old leg injury and hates fighting in the rain. The cornerstone of the 7th Magic Tower in the eastern district of the royal capital uses inferior magic crystals. A full-force attack there can disable the eastern district barrier for 7 seconds. This holy sword thing relies on bloodline, not incantations. My magic core is shattered now. So to me, it's just a rather pretty fire poker. I finished speaking in one breath, then looked at her eagerly. Need anything else? Noble secrets? Royal scandals? I know the finance minister embezzled military funds, the chief steward and the head maid are having an affair, and my third royal uncle actually likes to wear. Stop! Lilith raised her hand to cut me off, the sweet smile on her face completely vanishing. She stared at me, her dark red eyes filled with the unspoken words. "This isn't how the script goes." "Sir Hero," she said slowly, her tail not even swaying now. "Do you know? In the past 300 years, the 17 captured heroes endured an average of 43 days. The fastest record also lasted 12 days. And you've only been here for..." She glanced at the hourglass in the corner. 3 minutes? Isn't being efficient a good thing? I tried hard to make my expression look sincere. You want information? I give information. Fair trade, mutual benefit. Torture hurts so much, and it's time-consuming and laborious. This way is much simpler for me. Lilith narrowed her eyes, the tip of her tail gently curling. She leaned closer, almost pressing against me, her warm breath brushing against my earlobe. "You're not playing any tricks, are you?" "How can I play any tricks when I'm like this?" I tugged at the corner of my mouth, gesturing that I was still tied to the torture rack. "My magic core is shattered. My meridians are damaged. Now, any random demon child could beat me down. I'm just a pathetic captive who wants to live, nothing more." She took half a step back, crossed her arms, and scrutinized me. That gaze was like she was evaluating an antique whose authenticity was hard to discern. "Go verify," she suddenly said to the shadows. "The Grave Valley Garrison, the 7th Magic Tower, and his magic condition. I want the results before sunset." A low response came from the shadows. 2 demon guards, built like small mountains, walked out. They roughly untied me from the torture rack and dragged me towards the depths of the dungeon. "Wait," Lilith called out to them. She walked up to me, raised a hand, and pressed it against my chest. A purple magic array shimmered to life in her palm. A wave of icy power violently rushed into my body, crashing recklessly through my limbs and bones. I let out a muffled groan, and cold sweat immediately broke out. Magic core completely shattered, multiple meridians broken. She withdrew her hand, her expression growing even more complex. "You really are quite thoroughly crippled. So I pose no threat to you," I panted. "Kill me, and you'll only get a corpse. Keep me alive, and I can give you a continuous stream of information. This deal isn't a bad one, is it?" Lilith was silent for a few seconds, her tail unconsciously drawing circles on the ground. Then she waved her hand. "Take him to interrogation room number 3. Have Icefang and Dreamweaver interrogate him in turns. I want every single word he says confirmed." Interrogation room number 3 was quite clean, surprisingly, with no torture implements, just 1 table and 2 chairs. The first person sitting opposite me perfectly matched my imagination of an ice demon. Silver-white hair tied into a high ponytail, skin so pale it was almost translucent, ice-blue eyes as cold as permafrost. She wore a neatly tailored silver-gray uniform, her posture as straight as a ruler. A thick ledger lay open before her. "Freya, interrogator for the 7th Army Intelligence Department." Her voice was clear and cold. "Over the next 72 hours, I will verify all the information you provide. For every lie discovered, you will suffer the corresponding punishment." "Understood." "Understood," I nodded. "Begin." "The specific deployment details of the Grave Valley Garrison." I closed my eyes, accessing the original body's memories. Those military meetings, sand table exercises, deployment maps. They were as clear as if I'd just seen them yesterday. The archer camp on the eastern highlands, the cavalry ambush point in the western woods, the distribution of magic traps at the valley entrance. I described everything as detailed as possible, even listing the shift change times for several patrol teams. Freya's pen flew across the page, her face devoid of any expression. For hours later, she closed her ledger. First round concluded. Information has been sent to the front lines for verification. Rest for 2 hours, then Dreamweaver will arrive. She stood up and left without a single wasted word. Exactly 2 hours later, the door opened. The second interrogator was a drastic change of pace. Golden pigtails, big emerald eyes, wearing a fluffy white dress, and clutching an old rabbit doll. She bounced in, placed the rabbit on the table and rested her chin in her hands, looking at me. "Hello there, brave brother, I'm Melly. Everyone calls me the Dream Weaver." Her voice was so sweet it could make your teeth ache. "I don't like scary things, so how about we just chat, okay?" But I noticed, deep within her seemingly innocent large eyes, a nearly invisible ring of purple markings. A succubus, skilled at weaving illusions, the kind that digs for secrets in dreams. "All right," I said. "Then let's start from the beginning." Melly swung her legs. "Brave brother, what were you most afraid of when you were little?" "Darkness," I answered truthfully. "When I was 5, I was locked in the palace cellar for a night." "Why were you locked up?" "Because I stumbled upon a secret meeting between my second royal uncle and an envoy from a neighboring country." "Wow, and then what?" "After I was released, I had a fever for 3 days. Once I recovered, I told my father, the king, that my second royal uncle had given me spoiled pastries, which made my stomach hurt. 3 months later, my second royal uncle was sent to the border and died in an accidental attack." Melly's eyes curved into crescent moons. "Brave brother is so clever. So, when was the first time you killed someone?" 14. During a bandit suppression mission, a bandit pretending to be dead lunged at me from behind. I turned my sword and ran it through his throat. How did it feel? I threw up all night, and for 3 days afterwards, the sight of meat made me nauseous. Melly tilted her head, and the rabbit doll's ears twitched. "So, brave brother, do you have someone you like?" I paused. "No, liar," she smiled sweetly. "Your heart is beating faster. Is it the court mage sister who's always with you, or the Grand Duke's daughter you used to play with as a child?" "Neither," I said calmly. "I am a prince, the future king. Marriage is a political chip, and love is an unnecessary luxury. I don't have the luxury for it." Melly stared at me for a long time. Then she picked up a rabbit and hopped off the chair. "That's all for today, brave brother. Get some good rest." "Oh, and by the way," she turned back at the door, her smile still sweet. "3 details you mentioned about the capital's defenses don't match Freya's sister's records. She'll come to play with you later. Good night." The door closed. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes. An hour later, Freya returned. In her hand, she held a black whip. The cornerstone of the 7th magic tower, 3 years ago, was repaired using top-grade magic crystals, and there is a seal record from the Court Mage Corps. "You lied. The records are fake." I looked at her. The Minister of Finance responsible for the procurement at the time took a kickback, replaced them with inferior magic crystals, and forged the documents. "I knew about this 2 years ago." Freya's hand stopped in midair. "Evidence. The Chancellor's illegitimate son owns a manor in the Eastern Territories. A duplicate ledger is hidden in the underground vault. The coordinates are..." I rattled off the address and the unlocking password in one breath. Freya stared at me, a faint flicker finally appearing in her ice-blue eyes. "If what you say is true, then you'll have leverage over a key human minister," I interjected. "Isn't that value comparable to a defensive weakness?" She put down her whip and turned to leave. "Continue the verification. If you're wrong again, the punishment will be doubled." 3 days later, I saw Lilith again. This time it wasn't in a gloomy dungeon, but in a rather luxurious reception room. Deep purple carpets, obsidian walls, and magic crystal lamps emitted a soft glow. A long table was laden with food and red wine, looking quite impressive. Lilith sat at the head of the table, with Freya and Melly seated on either side. Beside them were several unfamiliar faces, a wraith-like lich clad in black robes, a nearly 2-meter-tall dragon-blooded warrior with fiery red hair and golden eyes, and an elf-demon hybrid with pointed ears and translucent, delicate wings on its back. "The verification results are in," Lilith began, her dark red eyes sweeping over me. "The number and deployment of troops in Ash Valley are all correct. Our people obtained the 7th Magic Tower's ledger, and it is indeed as you said. Your magic condition, confirmed by 3 masters, shows your core is completely shattered and beyond repair." She paused. "Elliot, as of now, all the information you've provided has proven to be true." Silence filled the reception room. So, I broke the silence. Can I ask for some terms now? The dragon-blooded warrior sitting to Lilith's right. Her muscles were astonishingly fluid, and her crimson hair resembled flames, let out a cold snort. A crippled human. What right do you have to make demands? On the grounds that I know 70% of human military secrets, 50% of noble weaknesses, and 30% of royal scandals, I said, looking at Lilith. Also, on the grounds that I am now considered a gloriously fallen hero on the human side. A dead man is the safest source of information. What do you want? Lilith asked. First, safety. I won't run, and you won't kill me. Second, basic living provisions, because I'm frail now. Third, I met her gaze. I want to see your leader. Impudent. The dragon-blooded warrior slammed her hand on the table and stood up. Lilith raised a hand to stop her. She stared at me for a long moment, then suddenly smiled. Do you know what happened to the last human who demanded to see his majesty? Idol. He was made into a lantern at the castle gate and lit for 3 years, I said. But I'm different from him. He came to declare war. I came to negotiate a partnership. Partnership? The black-robed lich let out a hoarse laugh. Human, do you qualify? Whether I qualify or not is not for you to decide. I turned to Lilith. Take me to see the demon lord. If she thinks I'm useless, I'll willingly become a lantern. If she thinks I'm useful, you'll have one more good tool to deal with the humans. Lilith's fingers tapped lightly on the tabletop. Do you hate humanity that much? I don't hate humanity. I told the truth. I just want to live. And giving you information is currently the best way for me to survive. Besides, those who betrayed me and schemed against me are now thriving on the human side. The enemy of my enemy, even if not a friend, can at least temporarily team up with us, right? The living room fell silent again. Freya spoke coldly. The intelligence does have value, but the risk is too great. I suggest we continue to detain him and simply extract information periodically. Mary dangled her legs, giggling. But that's so boring, and Hero Big Brother is so handsome, it'd be such a waste to lock him in a dungeon. Why not let him be Sister Lilith's exclusive informant? He could also entertain us normally. Mary, Lilith shot her a warning look. I'm serious, you know. Mary hugged her rabbit. Anyway, he can't escape. Keep him by our side. We can use him, and we can play with him. How good is that? Lilith didn't reply. She stood up and walked over to me. I'll give you 3 days. Write a catalog of all the intelligence you can provide, graded by value. After 3 days, I will decide whether to recommend you to His Majesty based on the catalog. Deal, I said. Take him to the North Tower guest room, Lilith told the guard, according to guest specifications. The guard froze for a moment, then bowed his head. Yes, madam. I stood up, walked to the door, and looked back. Miss Lilith. Thanks for not having me chopped to pieces directly. She looked at me deeply. Don't make me regret this, Elliot. The guest room in the North Tower was much better than I had imagined. It was spacious, clean, had a bed, a table, a wardrobe, and even a small balcony. Outside the window, I could overlook the entire city of Evernight, its purplish-black buildings glowing faintly under the magic crystal lamps. In the distance, the colossal black palace must be the demon lord's lair. 3 moons hung in the sky, purple, red, and silver, arranged with a certain artistic flair. On the table were paper, a pen, and a few books. I flipped through them: A Brief History of Demons, Basic Mana Theory, and A Compendium of Human Noble Weaknesses. How truly thoughtful and considerate. I sat down and began listing things. When I reached the 7th page, the door opened. Lilith came in carrying a tray, on which were food and several small medicine bottles. Your dinner and wound medicine. Freya didn't hold back. She placed the tray on the table and stood behind me, watching what I was writing. You remember things so clearly. A good memory is a prerequisite for royalty, I said, without lifting my head. And I originally kept this information to get rid of political enemies. I never expected it would benefit you first. Lilith was silent for a moment. Does your father know you know all this? He knows some of it, I continued writing. That's why he wanted to kill me. Your achievements overshadow your lord. It's the same principle everywhere, from ancient times to the present. You really do dare to say anything, because there's nothing left to lose. I put down my pen and turned to look at her. Miss Lilith, do you know? When you said you were going to torture me in the dungeon, that was when I transmigrated. It was the most relaxed moment of my life. I almost blurted it out. I stopped myself just in time. Why? She raised an eyebrow. Because I finally don't have to pretend anymore. I leaned back in my chair. No need to pretend to be the perfect prince. No need to pretend to be the selfless hero. No need to pretend to be the dutiful son. Now I'm just a captive, a cripple, an ordinary person who just wants to survive. How freeing. Lilith looked at me, her dark red eyes bottomless in the light. Aren't you afraid I'll use these words as evidence to prove you're insane? Would you? We held each other's gaze for a few seconds. She was the first to look away. Eat. Take your medicine. I want to see the complete catalog in 3 days. She walked to the door, and as her hand rested on the doorknob, she murmured, Elliot, the demons are not your sword. If you only want to use us for revenge, you'll die a miserable death. I know, I said. I just want to live. And sometimes, to stay alive, you have to make yourself more useful to certain people alive than dead. The door closed. I walked to the balcony, gazing at the lights of Evernight City. The night wind blew, carrying a mix of sulfur and a certain dark, hidden fragrance. In the distance, at the top of the dark palace, the blood moon was slowly ascending. The demon lord was there. In 3 days, would I be able to enter? I didn't know. But I knew that from the moment my original body was betrayed and stabbed, this body of mine had no turning back. I gripped the railing and chuckled softly. Father, royal uncle, and my dear adjutant. You'd better pray I'm truly dead. Otherwise, the day I return. Then we'll have quite the game. The night wind swept past, bringing faint music from afar. I turned back into the room and continued writing the list that would sooner or later overturn half the kingdom. And at that moment, in the shadows beneath the tower, Lilith looked up at the light from my room, the tip of her tail gently swaying. A crippled hero, an abandoned prince. She murmured to herself. The main hall of Evernight City was more artfully designed than I had imagined. There was no skull throne, no blood pool, no lava. Instead, obsidian tiles formed a shimmering floor, and slowly rotating clusters of purple crystals hung from the towering dome, casting shifting lights and shadows. The air carried a crisp, cool fragrance, like cedar mixed with some night-blooming flower. The demon Lord Yi Huang was seated on a long couch at the far end of the great hall, if one could call it sitting. She reclined against the soft cushion, her dark silver robe spreading out like flowing water, black hair cascading like a waterfall, with only a phoenix-shaped bone ornament poised, as if for flight pinned at her temple. Her face was shrouded in a faint, almost imperceptible shadow, its exact features unclear. I could only feel her gaze fall upon me, heavy with scrutiny. Lilith was half a step to my front and side, kneeling on one knee. Your Majesty, she said, the person has been brought. I followed suit, performing a respectful gesture. It wasn't quite standard, but the intention was clear. After all, my original body was a prince's, and the muscle memory lingered. Lift your head. The voice came, not loud, yet it seemed to echo directly in my mind, carrying a strange resonance. I looked up. The shadow receded slightly, revealing her elegantly sculpted jawline and a pair of violet eyes. Not the dark red of Lilith's, but a pure, nebula-like violet. Elliot, she pronounced my name, each syllable drawn out slightly. The crown prince of Rhine, the brave champion of light, now willingly prostrate beneath the shadows. Interesting. Not willingly, but pragmatically, I corrected. Besides, I'm a cripple now. Whether I prostrate myself or stand, it makes no difference to you. The high-ranking demon leaders standing in attendance in the hall, apart from Lilith, Freya, and Melly, who was secretly winking at me, whom I had already met, as well as the black-robed lich and the red-haired dragonblood general, subtly stirred at my words. Only Night Phoenix let out a soft laugh. Your intelligence dossier, Lilith has presented it, she said. She tapped her fingertip in the air, and a light screen unfolded, displaying precisely the pages I had written late into the night. The strengths and weaknesses of the Eastern Kingdom's military, the unspeakable secrets of the 7 great nobles, 3 secret passages to the royal treasury. Very practical and very lethal. But how can I trust you? You can send people to verify, I said. The garrison in Grave Valley and the cornerstone of the 7th Magic Tower. Those 2 have already been verified, haven't they? For the rest, you can pick the one easiest to verify and the one that would reassure you most, and I'll do it. Cunning, Night Phoenix remarked, but it's not enough. I need to see your true value, not just talk. She paused, and another light screen popped up, covered densely with distorted runes. This is an intercepted human encrypted military intelligence report. Within 7 days, decipher it. Succeed, and you'll be a guest official of the demon realm, enjoying protection and limited freedom. Fail. She didn't finish, but the meaning was clear. I took a few steps closer and squinted at the runes. It was a substitution cipher based on a variant of Ancient Elvish, mixed with a small number of military codes. The original body's memories contained relevant training, but it wasn't proficient. However, as a transmigrator who had experienced the information age and watched countless spy thrillers, my understanding of codes was far richer than theirs. Your Majesty, I began, may I ask a question? Speak. Is this secret report encrypted with magic, or is it a pure text-based cipher? The hall fell silent for a moment. The black-robed lich, later I would learn her name was Anu, spoke hoarsely. No magical fluctuations. Is a pure ciphertext. Then it's simple. I sighed in relief. Give me paper and a pen, and some food. 3 days, 3 days at most. The starlight in Night Phoenix's violet eyes seemed to swirl. 3 days? This encryption method back where I come from is a variant of what's called a Caesar shift, combined with specific keyword substitution. As long as you find the pattern, combined with context and frequency analysis, it's not difficult to crack. I paused. Of course, if you have more ciphertext from the same source as comparison samples, the speed could be even faster. Anu suddenly looked up, 2 faint lights flickering beneath her hood. Frequency analysis? What does that mean? It's a statistical method. In any language, the frequency of different letters appearing follows a pattern. For example, in the human common tongue, E and A appear most frequently, while Z and Q appear least. If the ciphertext is long enough, you could deduce the substitution rules by counting the occurrences of each letter. I briefly explained, then combining that with possible vocabulary, like terms commonly found in military intelligence such as army, attack, and defense. We verify our guesses, just like putting together a puzzle. A pin could be heard dropping in the entire hall. Mary whispered to Lilith, Sister Lilith, brave brother looks like he's glowing when he talks. Lilith ignored her, but the tip of her tail gently curled. Yi Huang slowly straightened her body, and the shadow completely receded from her face. It was a countenance difficult to describe in words. Beautiful, majestic, yet with an inhuman aloofness. She looked at me, as if sizing up a novel weapon. And you, cooperate with him. Call up all intercepted human ciphertext archives, she ordered. Then her gaze returned to me. Elliot, if you can truly decipher it within 3 days, I will not only grant you the position of guest elder, but also permit you access to the lower levels of the Shadow Abyss Library for 3 days. Faint gasps were heard around. It seemed this library was no simple matter. Deal, I said. For the next 3 days, I was immersed in Yu's laboratory. Calling it a laboratory, it was more like a massive, circular archive, with countless glowing scrolls floating within. And Yu herself was a research fanatic, showing immense enthusiasm for my frequency analysis method. She not only provided a massive amount of samples, but also personally joined in to help with the statistics. When we tabulated the 10th ciphertext, and Yu stared at the dense array of numbers and hissed, such exhaustive enumeration is too cumbersome. This is called big data analysis, a basic operation, I said, munching on an energy bar provided by the demon race, a dark purple paste that tasted like nuts. We need to go bald. We need to have some scientific spirit. But, and you questioned, it means working so hard that all your hair falls out. I gestured at my thick golden hair. Of course, I'm still a long way from that. Another time, Mary came to deliver snacks. She insisted it was surveillance work. Seeing the walls covered with runes and calculations, her eyes spun into dizzying spirals. Brave brother, are you drawing magic circles? We're deciphering, little Mary. I ruffled her head. It's like piecing together your jumbled nightmare fragments into a complete story. Will there be a reward for piecing it together? She asked eagerly. Yes, I'll reward you by having you calculate the frequency of the next 1,000 letters for me. I pushed a stack of papers towards her. Mary, I suddenly remembered Sister Lilith was looking for me. On the afternoon of the third day, when I presented the deciphered plain text, a detailed plan for human troop redeployment on the northern border. Before Yi Huang, she looked at it in silence for a long time. Verify. She finally said only 2 words. News quickly came back. It was completely accurate. A demon raiding party, relying on this intelligence, successfully ambushed the human redeploying forces, severely damaging them at a minimal cost. That evening, a black emblem engraved with a shadowy phoenix was delivered to my room. It was cold to the touch, with a faint glow within. The shadow emblem. With this, you can pass through most areas of Evernight City. You can withdraw a fixed amount of resources from the storeroom each month. Lilith personally delivered it. She stood at the doorway, with no intention of coming in. You are also assigned to my direct intelligence analysis group. Provisional rank, guest elder. I am your direct supervisor. So you're my direct boss, huh? I took the emblem and fiddled with it. Then please take care of me from now on, Lady Lilith. Do you need me to 996 or 007? Lilith frowned. What do you mean? It means working very hard. I smiled. She stared at me for a few seconds, her tail flicking impatiently. Starting tomorrow, report to me every morning to collate and analyze intelligence. Afternoons are yours, but don't even think about slacking off. Don't worry, I'm very diligent. Lilith turned to leave, then stopped. The authority to the Shadow Abyss Library granted by His Majesty is valid for 3 days. The books there are somewhat dangerous. Be careful. Thanks. I paused. By the way, do you guys have hot pot here? Lilith, question mark. It's a pot divided into 2 halves, one for clear broth, one for spicy broth, where you blanch meat and vegetables to eat. I gestured. I'm a bit homesick for my hometown food. Lilith was silent for a moment, the tip of her tail subtly flicking up. I'll have the kitchen try it. My life as a guest advisor officially began. In the mornings, in Lilith's quiet but tidy office, I would analyze, categorize, and offer suggestions regarding the intelligence reports sent back from various places. Lilith was extremely serious at work, spoke little, and was highly efficient. My comments like this intelligence is a bit watery or that move is too outrageous usually only earn me a faint glance from her. But after a few times, I noticed that she always prioritized the information I marked requires key verification. The afternoons were my free time, if being sought out by different demons in rotation counted as freedom. The first time I attended a high-level demon tactical seminar, I was stunned. Around the round table sat Night Phoenix, attending as a phantom, Lilith, Hector, the Dragonblood general, and you, and several other demon generals I hadn't met. The topic was how to counter the human race's potential spring offensive in the East. Hector slammed the table. Your Majesty? Why waste time discussing? Give me 30,000 demon wolf riders, and I'll flatten their vanguard camps directly, pushing all the way to Broken Blade Canyon. Let them witness the valor of the demon race. I couldn't help but whisper to Lilith next to me. Is this general's thinking a bit? Battle 5 scum. Lilith, what do you mean? It means scum with only 5 combat power. Cough. I mean their tactics are a bit too simple. I explained, war isn't a boxing match. You need to consider cost effectiveness. Achieve the greatest results with the least cost. A frontal charge might feel good, but heavy losses aren't worthwhile. You have to develop cautiously. Don't squander. My voice wasn't loud, but everyone around the round table was powerful and heard it clearly. Hector's crimson eyebrows shot up. Human, who are you calling Battle 5 scum? A metaphor, General. It's a metaphor. I quickly raised my hands in a gesture of peace. What I mean is, we can play some tricks. For example, send small units to harass their supply lines, spread false intelligence to make them fight amongst themselves, or set up some surprises along their inevitable routes. Once they're tired and disorganized, then pinpoint their weaknesses and strike hard. This is called guerrilla warfare, and its core philosophy is the enemy advances, we retreat. The enemy garrisons, we harass. The enemy tires, we attack. The enemy retreats, we pursue. The entire room fell silent. And you suddenly pulled out a small notebook and furiously began taking notes. Guerrilla, cost effectiveness. Develop cautiously. Brilliant. Such strategic summaries are concise and profound. Melly suddenly raised her hand. Then if we win, can we show off? The whole room fell silent. I couldn't help but wipe some sweat. Melly, don't learn that word. Night Phoenix's phantom seemed to smile. Continue. Gritting my teeth, I combined the original body's military knowledge with Earth's theories of war, rambling on about asymmetric warfare, the importance of information warfare, and logistics is daddy. Hector went from anger to contemplation, finally stroking his chin. You human, you've got some crooked stuff in your belly. But it sounds more interesting than a head-on charge. Lilith kicked me under the table. Not hard, her eyes signaling. That's enough. After the meeting, Hector cornered me. That guerrilla thing, how do you do it specifically? Elaborate. General, can we eat first? I'm a bit starved silly. Hector, starved silly? Is a new tactic. No, it's a physiological need. The demon tribe's diet was indescribable. It was either roasted demon lizard meat or stewed shadow mushrooms, seasoned only with salt and another strange bitterness. I endured it for half a month, finally borrowing a corner of the castle kitchen. When Lilith followed the strange aroma and arrived, she saw this scene. I stood before a self-made mandarin duck pot, separated by a magical metal basin, with bubbling red chili oil on one side and milky white bone broth on the other. Hector was eagerly eyeing the red broth. Melly secretly used her tail to snatch a floating mushroom, while Yu was holding a small notebook, recording the distribution of bubbles and heat transfer relationship when the hot pot boils. What are you doing? Lilith frowned. Improving our lives, Lady Lilith, I said, handing her a pair of chopsticks. Try this, it's called hot pot. The essence is to dip whatever you want to eat. Lilith hesitated before taking them, then, imitating me, picked up a thin slice of shadow beef, swished it in the clear broth, and put it into her mouth. Her chewing motion paused. How is it? I asked. Acceptable, she replied, setting down her chopsticks, but the tip of her tail subtly swayed. Hector had already devoured half a plate of meat dipped in the red broth, sweat beading on his forehead, eyes shining. Potent. This could boost morale. What's it called? This is called pervert spicy, specially prepared for warriors. I then handed her a glass of iced purple juice. Quick, the otaku happy water will cool the spice. Otaku, Hector asked, gulping down the juice. It means someone who enjoys life, I said, my expression unchanged. Melly secretly took a sip of my juice, her eyes instantly wide. These bubbles are dancing in my mouth. Hero Big Brother, I want more. All right, but don't drink too much, or you might socially die, I said, casually ruffling her head. Socially die? Melly blinked her large eyes. Is a new way to die? Like Big Sister in Yu's soul dissipation? And Yu, who was measuring the pot's bottom temperature nearby. Sort of, I said, stifling a laugh. It refers to a social death, like making a public fool of yourself, or being so embarrassed you wish you could crawl into a crack in the ground. Lilith watched our antics, a slight curve seemingly appearing at the corner of her lips. She picked up the communal chopsticks and silently placed a few cooked slices of meat into my bowl. I paused, then looked up at her. She avoided my gaze, her voice flat. "You're too thin." As an intelligence officer, physical stamina is also important. "Thanks," I smiled. "Lady Lilith, is this workplace care?" "Workplace?" She raised an eyebrow. "It's the work environment," I explained. "When a superior shows too much concern for a subordinate, it can easily lead to misunderstandings." Lilith's tail lightly brushed against my calf with a warning force, but her voice dropped a few tones. "And what if there are misunderstandings?" My heart skipped a beat as I looked at her face, slightly flushed in the steamy mist of the hot pot. I couldn't tell if it was from the spice or something else, and blurted out, "Well, I might just want to slack off entirely and focus on being a kept man." The surroundings instantly fell silent. Hector choked. Millie looked around curiously, and you scribbled furiously, "Slack off entirely." New term. Possibly refers to giving up effort. Be a kept man. Requires further analysis in context. Lilith glared at me, her look a mix of embarrassment and something else I couldn't quite place. She said nothing, only picked up another chopstick full of food and heavily placed in my bowl. "Eat more, talk less." Millie became a frequent visitor to my chambers, ostensibly to monitor the captive's psychological health, but in reality, pestering me to tell various stories from another world and frenetically learning new vocabulary. Brave big brother, what does "I'm totally wasted" mean? Do people from your homeland get drunk easily? That means speechless, not actually drunk. What is speechless? Is a silencing spell. It's an emotion like not knowing what to say. Then what about lying flat? Is that a playing dead tactic? It's more of a life attitude. And YYDS. Mealy, were you peeking at what I was writing yesterday again? In contrast, used communication was much more academic. She regularly invited me to her observation tower, a tall tower full of astrolabes and strange instruments, for tea, which was actually for analysis of otherworld culture and social structures. Based on your description, companies are loose groups based on contracts and aggregated interests, whose operational logic differs fundamentally from the feudal lord system. She scribbled. Then, how do KPIs and OKRs quantify abstract goals like faith propagation or territorial expansion? Me? Lady in you, can we talk about something more down to earth? Like whether the mess hall will have new kinds of mushrooms tonight. The cultivation of mushrooms involves light exposure, mana concentration, and spore activity ratio, which is indeed worth researching. She nodded earnestly, then began writing again. "You mentioned down to earth. This term is vivid, referring to focusing on practical, fundamental matters, as opposed to theoretical abstraction." I hadn't expected General Hector to be such an academic. Ever since she learned a few modern terms, she quickly integrated them into daily training and vigorously promoted them. On the training ground, her voice boomed like a bell. "Charge quickly. Don't dawdle like a sloth." The new recruits exchanged bewildered glances. "General, what kind of magical beast is a sloth?" "It's that thing Elliot mentioned that's so slow, it makes you go crazy." Next, the quartermaster reported, "General, the new armor is ready, but the budget went over." Hector waved her hand. "How much did it go over? Don't inflate the numbers." The quartermaster was flustered. "In no inflation. We genuinely used good materials." "Fine, but optimize it next time. We need cost effectiveness." "Understand?" "Cost effectiveness." "Why, yes, ma'am." Once, during a military exercise, her assault squad destroyed the enemy command post with minimal casualties. During the post-battle summary, she declared triumphantly, "This tactic deeply grasped the essence of guerrilla warfare. Enemy advances, we retreat. Enemy tires, we attack. Combined with the information gap, we left them completely bewildered. Demon generals below. Though we don't understand, it sounds impressive." Empress Knight Phoenix heard about it, and during a council meeting, commented lightly, "Hector, your recent choice of words is quite amusing." Hector puffed out his chest. "Thank your majesty. It's all thanks to Elliot. He calls it learning by doing and applying. Night Phoenix's purple eyes turned to me, a faint smile playing on her lips. It seems, Sir Elliot, you are skilled in more than just intelligence. Me? Your Majesty flatters me. Inner thoughts. General, can you please say less? The good days didn't last long before trouble arrived. Several batches of intelligence I provided proved effective, and the humans suffered several silent defeats at the border. The title traitor hero Elliot spread widely among humans. It was said that my portrait had been nailed to the pillories of major cathedrals to be cursed day and night. My former adjutant, now the new hero Sword of Radiance Raymond, even publicly declared that I had long been bewitched by the demons, sold my soul, and called upon all humanity to eradicate this fiend. Discord also arose within the demon ranks. The conservative faction, led by an elder named Stone Ridge, an old fire demon with a stern face, launched an attack during the council meeting. Your Majesty, this individual is human after all, not of our kind. Their heart must be different. He betrayed his own race so readily. How do we know this isn't a scheme of self-injury, intended to infiltrate our ranks and pry into our secrets? Your old servants suggest strict surveillance or early disposal to prevent future trouble. Lilith immediately rose. Elder Stone Ridge, the intelligence Elliot provided has been verified multiple times, without a single error, preventing significant losses for our race. This is a fact. Hector also boomed. That kid might be frail, but he's got a good head on his shoulders. His teachings on guerrilla warfare save hundreds of our brothers. How could that be false? And you pushed up her monocle, which she made herself from a behavioral logic analysis. If he were a spy, the value of the intelligence provided would far exceed the scope accessible to an ordinary spy. Furthermore, the concepts he proposed, such as information warfare and logistics theory, are greatly beneficial to our military reforms. The actions of a spy are usually to steal secrets, not to impart knowledge. His words and actions are contradictory. Elder Stone Ridge snorted coldly. Artful flattery. Perhaps that is precisely his cunning. Your Majesty, you must not be misled by him. Night Phoenix, seated high on the main throne, tapped her finger lightly on the armrest. Without uttering a word, she turned her gaze to me. Elliot, what do you have to say? All eyes converged on me. I put down the illustrated guide to new mushroom species I was studying and cleared my throat. It's normal for the elder to suspect me. After all, the traitor label I wear was personally placed upon me by you demons. But I provide intelligence to survive, and its authenticity is my only leverage for survival. If I gave false intelligence, it would have been exposed at the first verification. Why wait until now? Furthermore, I looked at Stone Ridge. If I were a spy, what would my objective be? To steal demon secrets and send them back to humanity? But I am currently wanted by all of humanity. Returning would be a dead end. Raymond would love nothing more than for me to die, so he can firmly secure his position as hero. If I went back, who would protect me? The God of Light. I smiled, a hint of self-mockery in it. I'm like a stray dog now. Humanity doesn't want me, and if the demons kill me too, there truly will be nowhere for me to belong in this vast world. My only value lies in what's in my head. Destroying it, who would benefit from that? Certainly not me. The hall fell silent. Elder Stone Ridge's face was ashen, and he looked as if he wanted to say something more. I continued, as for internal strife among demons. Elder, if I may be so bold, your actions here are a bit self-defeating. Humanity now sees me as a thorn in their side. This is precisely the time for us to unite and make good use of this hatred. For instance, we could spread rumors that I remain steadfast despite being severely tortured by demons, provoking suspicion among humans about Raymond's inaction and exclusion of dissidents. Or release some half-true, half-false intelligence to lure them into a trap. If we start arguing amongst ourselves first, are we just making ourselves a laughingstock for humans and letting them gain an advantage for free? I looked at Night Phoenix, spreading my hands. Your Majesty, I am just a useless person who wants to live. My life is tied to the current interests of the demons. Only if you thrive can I thrive. I understand this principle. Night Phoenix watched me silently for a moment, her purple eyes unfathomable. Then she slowly spoke. What Sir Eliot says is not without reason. Elderstone Ridge, your concerns I have noted. However, at present, his contributions outweigh any suspicion. This matter, let not be brought up again. Elderstone Ridge glared fiercely at me, then said nothing more. The storm subsided for now, but I knew that the seed of suspicion had been sown. What must come always comes. On a dark and stormy night, I was in my room studying the basic magic meridian diagram that you had given me, when the window was suddenly, silently pushed open. 3 dark figures slid in, clad in silvery white light armor, with the holy emblem of the sun emblazoned on their chests. The human judgment knights, specifically tasked with dealing with heretics and traitors. The leader took off his hood, revealing a familiar yet pained face. Your Highness Eliot. It was my former friend, Paladin Roland. His knuckles were white as he gripped his sword hilt. Indeed, you truly have fallen. I put down the book and sighed. Roland, long time no see. If you're going to kill or torture me, can you just make it quick? I still have to get up early tomorrow to compile intelligence for Lady Lilith. The 2 knights behind Roland glared furiously. Traitor, how dare you be so arrogant? I am no traitor, I said calmly. I was stabbed through the magic core from behind by Raymond, then thrown to the demons as a pawn. Roland, knowing me, would I willingly defect to the enemy? Roland's eyes struggled. But it's a fact that you are now living in a demon's lair, aiding evil. Your Highness, come back with me. Confess to His Holiness the Pope, perhaps. Go back. I chuckled. Go back to be offered as a sacrifice to appease the people, or to be silenced by Raymond. Roland, don't be naive. If he dared to lay a hand on me, he wouldn't leave me alive. Does he know you came for me? Roland's face turned pale. I seized the moment. Did he tell you I was corrupted by demons, and only by killing me could my soul be saved? Or was the secret route he gave you to get here also inadvertently leaked by him? The 2 knights looked at Roland. Roland gritted his teeth. Your Highness, cease your provocations. Whether I'm provoking or not, you know deep down. I stood up, slowly backing away. My hand discreetly reached under the table, where Lilith had placed a trigger-activated smoke magic device and a signal runestone that could emit a brief flash of bright light and a shriek for my self-defense. Roland, for old time's sake, listen to me. Leave immediately. Take your men back and tell Raymond I'm dead. This is your only chance to live. Obstinate. One knight couldn't hold back and charged forward, drawing his sword. I violently smashed the smoke magic device, simultaneously crushing the runestone. Pungent, thick smoke instantly filled the air, and a blinding flash and shriek echoed through the room. Enemy attack. I screamed with all my might. In the chaos, I grabbed a chair and smashed it against the window, trying to create the illusion that I was escaping through it, while I myself rolled under the bed, where there was a hidden small alcove. A sword flashed towards me. I dodged with all my might, but my shoulder felt cold. A gash opened up, but at the same time, the rune door was blasted open by a furious force. Who dares touch my people? Hector's enraged roar boomed like thunder. A crimson figure surged in, enveloped in a wave of heat, sending the sword-wielding knight flying with a single punch. Immediately after, Lilith's whip lashed out like a venomous snake, coiling around the neck of another knight. Melly's figure flickered in the smoke, and a nightmare whisper made the 3rd person clutch his head and scream in agony. Roland parried Lilith's long whip with his sword, his eyes bloodshot as he looked towards my hiding place. Your Highness! Hector blocked his path, sneering, Little bug, your opponent is me. The battle ended quickly. 2 knights were killed, and Roland was gravely wounded and captured. I crawled out from under the bed, clutching my bleeding shoulder, grimacing in pain. How are you? Lilith instantly flashed to my side, frowning as she examined the wound. It's nothing, just a flesh wound. I sucked in a sharp breath. Thanks to the alarm you gave me. And the hiding spot Melly found. Melly rushed over, her eyes brimming with tears. Hero big brother, you're bleeding. Does it hurt? Melly will blow on it for you. Foolish girl, what good will blowing do? Hector walked over, pulling out a jar of ointment that exuded a cool scent, and roughly, but carefully smeared it on my wound. Bear with it. This kind of wound is just a mosquito bite to us dragonbloods. The ointment worked incredibly fast. The bleeding stopped quickly, and the pain was greatly reduced. Only then did I look at Roland, who was bound by chains and kneeling on the ground. His face was covered in bloodstains, but his eyes were fixed on me, full of grief, indignation, and bewilderment. I walked up to him and crouched down. Roland, I don't hate you. You were merely used, I whispered. Go back and tell everyone that Elliot Rhine is dead. Dead in a demon dungeon, with no corpse remaining. This way, it'll be better for everyone. Roland's lips trembled. Your Highness, are you truly? Not turning back. My path was severed 3 years ago by Raymond's sword, I said calmly. Now, I just want to move forward. For the sake of our past, don't force me to kill you. Lilith spoke coldly. By law, infiltrators die. I stood up and looked at her. Lady Lilith, spare his life and let him go back. A paladin who personally witnessed my fall, filled with guilt yet powerless to save me, is far more useful than a corpse. Lilith met my gaze for a moment, her tail swaying gently. Are you sure? Sure. He's a living advertisement for Raymond's righteous sacrifice of kin, and a thorn buried deep in humanity's heart. Ultimately, Roland had most of his cultivation crippled, parts of his memory erased, and Shadow Whisper personally intervened to ensure he would only remember. Elliot has completely fallen, resides in the demon's lair, and rejects redemption, before he was thrown back across the border. The commotion subsided, but news of my injury still spread. After my wound was treated, I returned to my room, exhausted. Melly insisted on staying to take care of me, and fell asleep curled up on the rug by my bed, hugging her rabbit doll. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled something from within my clothes that Roland had struggled to press into my hand before he was taken away, an old but warm silver amulet, etched with simple healing runes. This was a family heirloom of Roland's, said to contain a faint healing power of holy light. May the light favor you once more. He mumbled finally. I gave a bitter laugh. The light? I'm now a guest elder of the demons. But by some strange impulse, I still clutched the amulet tightly. A faint, minuscule warmth flowed up my arm and into my body towards the location of my already shattered and dormant magic core. Then, like a spark landing in a haystack, an incredibly faint, almost imperceptible tremor emanated from that ruin. I abruptly widened my eyes. The next second, an even stranger sensation arose, not visual but a vague collection of images and emotional fragments, appearing directly in my mind. Melly was curled up on the rug, sleeping uneasily, her brow slightly furrowed, as if dreaming of something bad. In the hallway outside the door, Lilith stood silently, her tail restlessly tapping the ground. Further away, Hector was loudly complaining in the infirmary that there wasn't enough ointment. What was this? I looked down at the amulet, then felt that faint but undeniable tremor within my body. My magic core, was it repairing itself? Though at a pace so slow it was almost negligible. And that ability to perceive others' emotions, even vague thoughts. Hero, big brother? Melly's groggy voice drifted over. What's wrong? Your heart's beating so fast. Did you have a nightmare? She rubbed her eyes and sat up, looking at me with concern. I saw the clear concern in her emerald eyes and sensed the vague emotion of fear of loss radiating from her. A thought flashed through my mind. Could it be that because I had soothed her nightmares, combined with the healing power of this amulet, a certain shallow link had formed between our spirits? Or perhaps my shattered magic core was slowly healing itself by absorbing surrounding spiritual fluctuations in a strange way. It's nothing, I said, putting away the amulet and smiling at her. Just had an interesting dream. After the assassination attempt, my position within the demon race subtly solidified. Elder Stoneback no longer publicly questioned me, and the way other demons looked at me shifted from suspicious traitor to bearing a hint more of one of us. After all, I had nearly been killed by a human assassin and had ingeniously used the assassin to turn the tables. Life seemed to have returned to normal, yet it was also somewhat different. I was no longer just an intelligence analyst. Emperor Knight Phoenix had specially permitted me to participate in some low-confidentiality strategic meetings, even asking for my opinions on internal demon affairs. Terms like cost-effectiveness, process optimization, and reducing internal friction gradually circulated among the management. General Hector's Ironblood Legion began experimenting with small-scale guerrilla tactics, achieving remarkable results. Every time she returned victorious, she would bring captured good wine to discuss tactics with me, though it was actually bragging plus freeloading a meal. Lady Whisper's research progressed by leaps and bounds. Based on frequency analysis and information theory, she improved the demon race's encrypted communication and was attempting to build a logical deduction model to predict human movements. In return, she began systematically teaching me demon script and basic magic theory. Even though my magic core was shattered, there was no harm in learning theoretical knowledge. Melly was still my little shadow, but she no longer merely found me interesting. After the assassination attempt, she clung to me more tightly and seemed to perceive my emotions more acutely. Sometimes when I was in low spirits, she would quietly hand me a sweet nightmare fruit, a specialty of the demon realm, said to induce pleasant dreams. My relationship with Lilith entered a subtle understanding. She was still the rigorous and aloof superior, but during the daily morning intelligence briefing, there would always be an extra cup of stimulating tea, just the right temperature, on the table. She no longer called me Elliot or guest minister, but simply, once, after analyzing a report on the extravagant customs of human nobles, I casually quipped, "Behind Vermilion gates, wine and meat go to waste. On the roads, lie people frozen to death. These nobles truly are of the why don't they eat meat porridge type." Lilith's pen paused. "Another saying from your homeland?" "Yes. It means that those in high places simply don't understand the suffering of the common people and ask foolish questions like, why don't they eat meat porridge?" She was silent for a moment, then said, "The demon realm also has similar problems. Some overseers in the eastern mining zone withhold rations from the miners, enriching themselves. Then investigate and deal with it," I said, flipping to the next document. "We need to swat tigers and flies alike. Arrest those who should be arrested, kill those who should be killed. If the foundation is stable, the top can sit securely. This is called, the will of the people is the greatest politics." Lilith gave me a deep look. "Sometimes you speak not like a prince, but like a philosopher who has experienced much suffering among common people." I smiled. "I read it in a book. A great man from my homeland said it." She didn't press further, but that afternoon, news arrived that 3 overseers in the eastern mining zone had been dismissed and were under investigation, with astonishing efficiency. Another time, I tried to use magic to clear my meridians, guided by Lady Whisper's theory, which resulted in chaotic chi and a pale face. Lilith noticed, but said nothing. Only that evening, a warm stove and a box of calming incense appeared in my room. "The demon realm is cold and damp at night. You have a weak constitution, so be careful," she said, and then left. Watching the flickering fire in the stove, a corner of my heart subtly softened. Hector remained as carefree as ever, but he'd remember to bring me enhancement potions suitable for human constitutions, which he'd found during training, even if they tasted awful. And you gave me a more comfortable quill and an eye-protecting magic crystal lamp, both personally improved by her. Melly simply treated me as her exclusive dream experience officer, often dragging me along to test play her new dreams, ostensibly to collect emotional samples from otherworldly creatures. Empress Yi Huang would occasionally summon me, asking wide-ranging, imaginative questions. Lord Elliot, in your opinion, is coexistence possible between demons and humans? I thought for a moment. Difficult in the short term. The resentment runs too deep, and the conflicts of interest are too great. But in the long run, not necessarily. For example, demons need human grain and handicrafts, and humans need minerals and magic materials from the demon realm. If stable trade channels could be established, binding them with mutual interests, perhaps hatred could slowly fade. But this would require powerful strength and wisdom to drive and maintain, as well as time. Yi Huang tapped her fingertips lightly on the armrest of her throne, binding them with interests. An interesting idea. If I were to grant you a territory to implement this policy, would you dare? I was startled. Your Majesty, with my small physique, I can't command such a situation. Moreover, I am currently a human trader. If I were to engage in trade, I'd probably be cut to pieces the moment I step out. Yi Huang chuckled softly. I was merely hypothesizing. You may withdraw. As I walked out of the grand hall, a chill ran down my spine. Her Majesty, the demon monarch. Her mind was unfathomable. She kept me around, probably not just for information. It was another night in the demon realm. 3 moons hung high in the sky, bathing Evernight City in a hazy glow. I stood on the balcony of the North Tower, clutching the healing amulet Roland had given me. After a few days, I could clearly feel an extremely faint, warm current slowly circulating and repairing the shattered core within me. While recovering my magic power was still a distant prospect, at least it was no longer utter stillness. Even more miraculously, that vague perception of others' strong emotions seemed to slowly strengthen as the core repaired itself. I could faintly sense the emotional fluctuations of the demons coming and going below the tower. Fatigue, joy, anxiety. Like hearing sounds through frosted glass. Faint footsteps sounded behind me, and a familiar cool fragrance wafted over. Watching the moons again, Lilith's voice asked. She walked to my side and leaned against the railing. Tonight, she wasn't in uniform but wore a simple dark purple long dress. Her long hair flowing loose, less of her usual sharp intensity, more of a languid grace. The moons here, compared to those in the human realm, seem to have more stories. I put away the amulet. There are new rumors about you in the human realm, Lilith said. They say you're indulging in drink and debauchery here, spending your nights in revelry, and have long forgotten the light. I chuckled. Drink and debauchery? I get drunk just from drinking juice. Nights of revelry? Every night, I'm either reading or being dragged by Melly to test dreams. Who made up this rumor? It's so uncreative. Raymond, Lilith said lightly. He's consolidating his position and needs to thoroughly discredit you. As expected, I looked towards the distant human kingdoms. The more he revels now, the harder he might fall in the future. Do you want to go back for revenge? Lilith tilted her head to look at me, her dark red eyes exceptionally profound in the moonlight. No, I shook my head. Revenge is too tiring and not worth the effort. I have food, drink, and a place to live now. My boss is cold-faced but not bad-hearted. My colleagues are strange but easy to get along with. And there's a library I can immerse myself in. Why go back? To continue being a prince caught in political infighting, only to be stabbed in the back by someone again someday. Lilith was silent for a moment. You're quite open-minded. What else? I turned to look at her. Lady Lilith, tell me, is it better for me to stay in the demon realm as a useful advisor, occasionally offering immature suggestions to improve everyone's standard of living, or to run back to the human realm, be cursed, hunted down, and eventually die a pathetic death? Which choice is more appealing? Appealing? It means better, wiser, I chuckled. It's a saying from my hometown. The corner of Lilith's mouth seemed to curve slightly. Sophistry. The night breeze swept past, carrying the faint floral fragrance from the distant magical plant garden. We stood side by side for a moment in silence. The atmosphere was a little subtle, but not awkward. Your magic, Lilith suddenly spoke, seems to have fluctuated slightly. It's very faint, but I sensed it. My heart jolted. As expected of a high-ranking succubus, her perception was truly keen. It might be the effect of Roland's amulet. It seems. There's a tiny sign of restoration, slow as a snail's crawl. I didn't hide it, nor could I. Should I tell on you? She might have a way to speed it up. Not for now. I shook my head. Let's just let nature take its course. What if the amulet's power conflicts with my current constitution and ends up doing more harm than good? Lilith nodded, not pressing the issue further. The tip of her tail swayed unconsciously, occasionally brushing against my wrist. Elliot, she suddenly called my name, neither you nor guest advisor. If, one day, your magic recovers and even becomes stronger, will you leave? I froze for a moment and turned to look at her. She was gazing at the distant palace, her profile somewhat indistinct in the moonlight. I thought for a moment and answered seriously. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'm quite comfortable right now. The demon realm isn't that scary, and you all aren't that bad either. At least, no one here will stab me in the back. I paused, then joked. Besides, I haven't figured out the hot pot base recipe yet. How can I leave? Also, I promised to teach General Hector the concept of blitzkrieg, promised to help Lady Anu perfect her information theory model, promised to tell Melly Harry Potter next time. I owe too many debts. I can't leave. Lilith finally turned her face to look at me. The moonlight fell into her dark red eyes, creating ripples I couldn't understand. Remember what you said? Her voice was very soft, yet carried a certain weight. Then, she reached out her hand, not the hand she usually used to pass files or a whip, but gently took hold of my wrist, the very spot her tail tip had just brushed. Survival in the demon realm is not easy. Since you've chosen to stay, live well. Don't die easily. Her hand was slightly cool, but her grip was tight. I looked down at her fair fingers, then looked up at her face. So close, my heart inexplicably skipped a beat. Don't worry. I heard my voice a little hoarse. I'm a master of survival. Lilith seemed to smile, a faint smile, like ripples on the water's surface stirred by the wind. She released my hand and turned around. Get some rest. As for tomorrow's intelligence reports, there are a few that require your special attention. Yes, Lady Lilith. She walked towards the door, her steps a little slower than usual. At the doorway, she paused, without looking back. That hot pot, the kitchen will try making a new flavor tomorrow. If you're free, you can come. To test it. With that, she pushed the door open and left, leaving behind only a faint, cool fragrance in the air and a sentence that dissipated in the night wind. Don't be late. I stood on the balcony, watching her silhouette disappear at the end of the corridor, then looked down at my own wrist. A faint, cool sensation seemed to linger there. The night wind blew, and the lights of Evernight City stretched out beneath my feet. The purple moon, the blood moon, the silver moon. 3 moons of different colors hung silently in the sky. The road was still long, but at least, at this moment, there was direction and beside me, a companion. What will the future be like? Who knows?